Hey everybody, it's Caitlin with Glitter Chimp coming to you live from our production warehouse to do a tutorial today on how to do a Marauders map Power Tumbler. This is going to be using the Power mica powder that we have that goes from black to clear, which is great for doing a lot of different types of tumblers. I know a lot of people, this is what they really like to do, is the Harry Potter themed. I am going to show you guys some other samples, of course, of different things you can do with Power to really make an amazing tumbler that will honestly surprise people. But of course, the one thing that people really want to see is these Marauder cups. So I'm going to show you guys how I do them. It may not be how a lot of people do it, but this is how I do it, just because I feel like I get to be a little bit more creative when I make them this way. So I already did a preview video showing you guys how to do a water slide, and you got to see me do it with the map piece. So I will make sure to input that also into this video so you can kind of see step by step how this is done. But first, I have my prepped tumbler. This is just a 20-ounce skinny hog tumbler. I've already prepped it, got my white spray paint on here. And what I'm gonna do with this, of course, is turn this into the antiqued rustic look so that the back of the map has. So I have, of course, my tumbler. I have my handy dandy fancy, really cheap dollar store paintbrush. I always use this type of a brush. It gives it a lot more detail in my opinion, but you can use any type of brush. A sponge brush would actually work really well with this tumbler. And I also brought this one, which is a synthetic brush. I'm going to use it a little bit to kind of add a little bit of detail, but hey, we'll see. Because again, this is not how a lot of people do this. So it's more fun, I guess. And I'm also going to be using some Marabou alcohol inks to do the backside of the tumbler. And this is kind of fun for me though, because it kind of sort of goes back to the honeycomb tumblers I used to do. Just that instead of the gold, it's kind of more of the rustic, dirty looking map colors. So we're gonna just kind of play around. We're gonna use brown, caramel. I may not use all of these. It just kind of, as it goes, we'll see what happens. So I've got, what is that? Cinnamon. I have lemon, which I may not use very much of this, but again, we'll see. Vanilla and tangerine. So what we're gonna do now is actually flip the camera down, and I'm gonna start showing you guys how I do this my way. So I'm gonna flip the camera down and get it so you guys have a really good view of how I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna get started. So let's turn this camera down. All right, so I have my paper ready to go. This is just mainly to catch spills and stuff that are gonna happen. And I've got, like I told you guys, my tumblers prepped, ready to go. I have my inks right here. I did, however, rethink which paintbrush I was gonna use because I'm not doing a wood grain, but I'm gonna still use this brush. So I did grab 2 sponge brushes so I can kind of more sponge this onto the cup because I'm not doing wood grain, right? So let's be smart about this. All right. So let's go ahead, and what I'm gonna do first, and this is just what I do with tumblers, is I actually make little dots of ink on the paper so I can actually see what the color looks like. And then that way I can know what colors are better to use for a project. So like I told y'all, I picked a bunch of different colors. So this is lemon, which I may or may not use. We shall see. Oh my goodness, that one's like stuck. All right, this is tangerine. Ooh, that's a good color. I like that color. Tangerine, we're gonna try out cinnamon. Ooh, that's a definite good color. Vanilla, which that is a good color for the base of this cup. This is caramel. And of course, just plain old brown. All right, so brown, and I made a mess on my paper. Luckily it dries. So I'm gonna do the base of this, which means just the bulk of the cup I'm actually gonna do in vanilla. And that's because to me it kind of visually looks about the right color. So let's get started. I'm gonna use this really small brush. This brush is super old and has definitely, this thing can tell some stories. So let me get the lid off here. And this is kind of fun. This is a new angle for you guys, so you can kind of see, and I can still see what I'm doing. So let's get started. There are no mistakes in art, y'all. And that's why I love making cups. So if you've ever seen the Harry Potter movies, you do know that magic is what happens in the entire movie, which is what we're going to be doing here. So if I start rambling, forgive me. What we're gonna do is actually just sponge this all on the tumbler, all around it. Don't worry about the little empty white spots because that's fine. As we do this, we're gonna move the cup around. Just keep sponging it. Don't worry about your little streaks. They will disappear as we do this. There's apparently some glitter stuck in my paintbrush, which, you know what? I'm not even going to be mad about because that's just kind of going to add, I guess, a little bit of a dirt factor, if you will, for this map. Because it's not a brand new map, is it? No, these are old maps that have been around for generations. So, as you can see, we've got a nice yellow going now. I'm glad I went with this color though. This is, so just so you guys know, again, this is Marabou's Vanilla Alcohol Ink. It's a very nice, soft yellow. I'm kind of digging this. And you can use like the round sponge brushes. I just don't seem to have any in the warehouses. So, and I checked. I wish I did. But this works just as well. This is how I started doing tumblers, was using normal paint brushes that are sponges. And I just kind of like them. And then I'm gonna just keep going around the cup until it's all nice, sort of color covered, because we're gonna go back in here probably with some of the cinnamon color. And then the nice thing about alcohol inks is if you do all this and you don't like it, guess what? Wash it off with alcohol and it will be all ready to go again. Which is again why I say there are no mistakes. Everything is on purpose. That's why it's art. And always, of course, don't forget the bottom of your tumbler. Because I did that once in a video when I did the camo video and I forgot to do the bottom of the cup. 100% my fault, but that's okay. All right, so, oh, forgot to do the side. And I will not let my daughter steal this Harry Potter cup from me either. It's all she ever does, steal my tumblers. Try to fix a few of these streaks here. So I have a nice yellow, golden yellow base. So what I'm actually going to do, let's put that in the right there so I know which circle it was. But I'm actually gonna go in, and I may not use all of these colors. This is just so I can visually see what colors I think will look best. And I already can tell you I'm not gonna be using the lemon or the tangerine. They're just too yellow. So I'm actually, okay, so what I'm gonna do now is go in with cinnamon to just kind of darken up a few spots. Put it in my hand. Gives it much more of a used, almost like a coffee look. Like a used, like old, you know, coffee spilt on paper kind of look. I'm really liking the way these two colors are blending, for sure. Gives that nice antique kind of paper look. Not bad for being a stainless steel tumbler. And you want to make sure you don't do this too dark, because you are going to put that water slide on top of this, and you want to still be able to see that clear water slide over it. And if you think you went a little too dark, don't worry about it. Just go over it again with the vanilla, and it'll actually lighten it up so it's more like this tone. You can even just darken up parts of it and then make sure like that you leave a space just where your water slide's gonna go. My brush is falling apart. Ew. I'm pretty hard on my brushes. I get used probably too much. All right, so I'm gonna get this last little bit here. That looks pretty darn good. All right, so don't forget, again, gotta do the bottom. All right, so I got the bottom done now. And now, that was cinnamon. I've used vanilla. I'm just doing this so you all can see, finally know the end result of what I end up using. I think I'm actually just gonna go in now with caramel here at the edges and kind of bring it up and into the cup. So, it, you know, just so it looks like the edges are older. So it looks more like the map. All right, so again, this is caramel. That may not be dark enough. Let's see. Let's just go around and see what happens. It's kind of nice. I may actually put some, this kind of looks like more like a stain, which again, that's the whole point. It's an older map. I like it a lot. It's really coming together quite nicely. All right, so let's just go ahead and continue around the tumbler. And as I do this, I can kind of get the bottom too, so it gets that little edge there. So now you can see it's got a little bit more of an aged look down here as compared to the rest of the cup. But I don't quite think it's dark enough. So let's set that down, and I'm gonna grab some brown. We're just gonna mix the two and see how this goes. Oh, that's a lot better. I'm not gonna do the whole thing with it, but I'm just gonna add a few extra darker spots. That's why I love working with the inks, because you can do so much more. And I actually, okay, so you see now how that spot's gone? I really like how dark that is. So I'm actually gonna probably do a few little, I'm gonna do something in just a second and just kind of play with it, see what happens as my ink rolls away from me. So there we go. Now that looks good. I'm in love with that. So let's do that again, but to the top. So we're gonna start again with caramel. Keep putting my brush down when I need to hold it. And this method actually is really nice too if you got, if for example, if you have a kid who loves, or even an adult, I mean, everybody loves pirates, but if you want to do like a map, like for a pirate ship or something like that, this is a good method to do with that. All right, so now I'm gonna do brown, just plain old brown that I keep trying to drop into my lap. And again, I'm not gonna do it all over this, the edge, but I'm gonna put it in some spots. All right, so now give it a little twirl. Looks pretty good. Okay, so for what I want to do next, this may get a little messy, but that's okay. This may not work, but it will. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of dab the brush in here to kind of put a little bit of some dirty spots on the cup. I wish I had a small little brush that I could like almost kind of sort of do a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like splatter paint kind of thing. Because that would look cool. But I don't have that right now. And I don't have gloves. Or I would. All right. There is the base of the map. I think it looks pretty nice. So now what I'm going to actually do is maybe add a little bit more, but yeah, because like right here it needs just a touch of more brown. As much as I didn't like the brown at first, it's growing on me. All right. And I think we're gonna go ahead and just call that done and ready. And so what I'm gonna do now is actually go get the water slide that I'd already prepped for this, and we will get that put on here and ready to go. Okay, so we're now inside. The water slide is completely dry now. It's got that nice extra shine on the image. And so what I'm gonna do is show you guys how to do this in the water. I have a bucket because it's what I have. This is a big water slide, so I need a pretty big bucket for the water to sit in. So I have my water set, prepped, ready to go. It's just warm water. And I'm gonna show you guys now how I take care of this part because this is too big for the cup I'm doing, which is right here. So I have to actually cut this down and then we will get it. I'm so sorry for getting so close to the camera on that one. So sorry. Goodness. Okay, continue on. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this out and get it on the cup. So what I'm gonna do is turn the camera back down again so y'all can see how this is done and see how it's applied to a tumbler. Okay, so I have my paper right here, my water slide ready to go. I have my tub of warm water and my cup. Now I have already gone ahead and trimmed off the bottom edge of this so that it will fit on the tumbler. And as of right now, it looks like I have to trim just a hair off the top and we'll be super good on the height of this. Now you can get very technical if you wanted to, use a straight edge and like a paper cutter to get it nice and even. But for all intents and purposes of what we're doing here, I don't really need it. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is actually trim all the sides here because I don't need the whole cup to be the water slide, just the part that I want. Using my fancy zebra striped scissors. All right, so now I have my full water slide ready to go. And this is going to fit perfectly around. I will have a space here, but I did that on purpose so that I can put a name here. All right, so going to set this into the bucket of water. Let me move some stuff here. Working with a smaller area than I'm used to. my water slide, just set that on ahead in the water. It will curl a little on the edges, which is fine because it's paper and it goes in the water. All right, so we're gonna let that sit for just a second, and you will start to see the water slide lifting, which is exactly what you want to see. And it is ready to go. So now I put some water, on the cup itself. Pick up my water slide. I'm gonna slide the water over here. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and slide this puppy onto my cup. All right, so you have your paper now. You don't need this anymore. It is now trash. And you want to be very gentle with this stuff because it can rip. Oh my goodness. And this is why I like using triple thick, because that stuff really works well for water slide. All right, so I'm gonna use my brush here to kind of get, the best brush to do this with is a Mod Podge brush or just a synthetic bristled brush, because this actually helps push the excess water from behind the water slide and it gets it out from underneath the water slide. And also helps you brush out any little wrinkles that may be under there that you can't see. Kind of acts like a squeegee. Ooh, or like me, you have a big air bubble. No worries, got that out. I wish I'd put a paper towel down on the table. But there is one Marauders map, water slide tumbler, nicely done. Again, I told you guys I was leaving space here so I can put a name here if I wanted. I could put the school, not school, but the school that you want to put on there. I mean, you can, so you could put Hufflepuff or Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, whichever one you want. But otherwise for me, I'm just gonna put my name right there. But there it is. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead now and get this gorgeous cup on the turner, and I'm gonna show you guys how to use our awesome mica called Power. As you guys can see right now in the jar, Power is kind of this weird muted gray. Once it gets under epoxy, it's going to turn black, and then when it's cured, and then once you get heat applied to your tumbler, it'll actually turn clear. So that is the magic of Power, which of course, why wouldn't we do that on a magical cup? So we're going to go ahead and get this mixed so you guys can see how this is done. This is going to be done with 2 layers of epoxy, so I'm actually going to record this now, and then tomorrow come back and do the second layer and then do a reveal for you guys of how the tumbler works. So we're gonna go ahead and get, as you can look, you can already see it's turning colors in my hand. It turns kind of white, but this is of course when it's not in epoxy. So let's get the camera turned down, get the cup turner going, and we will get this set up and ready to go. So let's get it done, guys. Okay, so we have our cup sitting on the turner. It's nice and level and ready to go. I already have mixed 1 ounce of epoxy, which I'm using Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. So what I usually do is with 1 ounce of epoxy, with using any of the mica powders of any kind, if I'm doing a solid layer, I try my best to I mostly eyeball it, but for y'all, I'm going to try to get a measurement. So I'm using Power. Again, this is going to be the thermal mica powder that will change with heat. Get that set off. So what I'm going to do is I have an empty cup here. I'm just going to try to measure out about what I would normally use to see if I can kind of get a idea for you guys. So I'm using, it looks like, so about with what I would use. I know it's hard for you guys to see because you're up above me, but it's I'm using about a little over 5 milliliters of powder to do the first layer of Power. Say that 5 times fast. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just dump this into my resin and go ahead and stir. And I'm gonna make sure to get this nice and mixed so there's no lumps or clumps. So what you're gonna end up with is something that kind of resembles this dark gray. And that is because the epoxy has heat to it, so it is going to make the color change. So I have my ounce here. I'm gonna go ahead and start just basically coating the entire tumbler in the mix of Power and epoxy, and just get going. And I know it's so sad to cover everything up, but it's going to look incredible when it's finished. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to hit the camera stand. I'm not used to being seated when I do epoxy. So I was trying to get a better angle to do the bottom. Make sure I get that nice corner at the bottom. Nice and coated now. So what I'm going to actually do is hit this with the torch just to get any little micro bubbles out that there may be. All right, so now we're gonna let this turn overnight and come back tomorrow. Y'all get to see what it looks like once this is cured, and we'll actually get a second layer of power and resin on top of that next. So I will see you guys back after this is nice and cured. All right, so now this is cured. You can tell now that the power mica is on here because it's got that nice darker color to it. You put your hand on it to heat it up, it's gonna reveal more of the image. But I will go ahead and tell you guys that, so when I did this last night, I said I usually don't measure this stuff when I put the mica in the epoxy. So as you can tell, I actually didn't get enough on here, but it doesn't matter because we do add 2 layers of this. So I'm actually gonna do this again on the second layer, but I'm actually going to use more of the power powder. So I'm going to try to measure this again, but I know I need to do more than what I had done. So right there is 7. I'm going to try to go for about 12 milliliters on this coat. Just so I have a nice thick layer. I will flat out tell you guys though, straight up, if you need to do 3 layers, you can. I usually try to only do 2, but you can go up to 3 layers. All right, so I have that mix put in the, little jar or cup, sorry. That's only about 10. So let me go a little more. All right, so that's about 12. Ignore the truck next door. All right, so I have my little cup here. I'm gonna go ahead and mix it in the epoxy. I'm gonna stir this all up in this epoxy, get it nice and mixed. Just gonna stir. All right, let me get the lid on all this stuff here. All right. Finish stirring. Stir, 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 stir. I'm actually going to turn on the cup turner here. Got so much stuff in my way right now. Oh my goodness. All right. That's just gonna catch, not that it matters on this table. It's got so much epoxy and glitter and everything else stuck to it. So I don't know why I bother trying to catch more of the epoxy, but hey, it gives everybody something to do at the end of the day when we're sitting around talking, especially at lunch. We like to peel the epoxy off of the table. All right, so I got my glove. Gonna just start basically doing the exact same thing as we did earlier. So just go ahead and layer that on there. This is good. So I think definitely, I'll just go ahead and say this on the next coat. For the first coat, people should probably put about, I'd say 10 milliliters of Power on their tumbler just to get that first layer nice and thick and dark. I only did 5 in the video, and of course I can tell that I didn't use enough, but I told y'all before, I don't usually measure how much mica I put in my epoxy. I just kind of eyeball it and go with, you know, that looks dark enough kind of a mentality. Let's spin for a second. And then of course, don't forget to do the bottom of the cup. And I have a few other designs I'm gonna do using Power just to kind of show you guys this isn't the only thing you can do with this type of a mica. I've got a couple really cute ideas, especially some that are gonna be, you know, involve some kind of layering of vinyl, but it'll look really cool. This is cool because it's a water slide, and I actually don't use water slides very often just because, I don't know. It's not that they're hard or anything. I seem to like vinyl because I feel like I have a little bit more control over what I'm doing. Let that spin for just a second. I got a little too much epoxy down there. I'm gonna hit this with the torch for a second, just to get any bubbles out. You don't have to use a torch. You can use a heat gun, spritz it with alcohol, whichever you prefer. I just like to use the torch. Just a little bit, to me it's easier to use. Because I'm always terrified if I use a heat gun, I'm gonna get the electric cord on the epoxy when it's wet. Because I may or may not have done that before. Okay, so that's a nice good coat of the second layer of Power. As y'all can see, it's very cloudy looking, which is the look you want it to have, because this is basically kind of, it's not cold, it's not hot, it's getting warmer though, as the epoxy will do when it, you know, starts to cure. So this is now finished. So what I'll do is wait for this to cure and then show you guys the completed process once it's done. And that is awesome. Okay, so now that I have shown you guys how to do a Marauders map tumbler using the mica powder called Power, I have it finished. I want you guys to kind of get a look and see how this looks. So this is the tumbler. As you can see, it's completely black except for where my fingers are starting to touch the cup. It's completely black. Yes, just like all mica, you're going to end up with the little bits that show on the edges. I have yet to figure out how to make it so that doesn't happen. But my hand is actually warming this up. So I'm just going to show you guys this does work with heat of your hands, of course, outside. If it's a really hot day, like it gets here where it's, you know, 95, 100 degrees, there it is. It will start to show through the cup. My hands are a little cold, but that's okay. So anyways, while I sit here and talk to you about this, I'll start trying to warm up the cup. It is 73 in our warehouse, so as you can tell, it's gonna take a little long time to get heated up there. But this is what it will look like. On my second coat of this, I told you, it's kind of actually a little joke. I told you I don't normally measure how much mica powder I put in epoxy. But that's okay, because the first layer I did, I put in, I think it was 5 milliliters of power in the epoxy. And the next layer, I was like, I think I didn't do enough because it was pretty thin. And I did 12, 10. I'll have to think about it and go back and look. So I did do a little too heavy on the second coat, but at the same time, I mean, it still gets the exact same effect where you can see through. I ended up not putting anything on the back of the cup, which is fine. I'm not worried about that at all, because again, my daughter's just gonna end up stealing this tumbler from me. So this is how Power works. And now you guys all know how to use it. I'm actually gonna make a few other tumblers just using this in other aspects other than just your obvious doing this. With the Marauders map. I saw someone actually did a post where they did a Star Wars tumbler and it looked amazing. I have a really fun idea about doing one with leopard print, and I'm gonna do that for sure because that just sounds like fun. So anyways, this is your Marauders map tumbler using Power. I love it.